Good evening. Welcome to the Pickens County primary debate, Republican primary debate. We're here this evening with our candidates for commissioner, and we're certainly glad that they were able to come. We're glad that you're able to tune in and be with us this evening, and we hope that this will be an informative debate for you, our citizens of Pickens County, to help you make up your mind as to who you would like to be elected to our commission chair position for the upcoming term. So at this time, we have Chairman Commissioner Rob Jones here. Mr. Jones has been here since 1968, married to Diane since 1971. He raised his children here and raised his grandchildren here. He's a product of Pickens County schools and local colleges. He's been the sole commissioner for the last 8 years. We also have Mr. Chris Stansel, born and raised here in Pickens County, product of Pickens County schools, married to Allison, who is a teacher in public schools for 21 years. He's been in public service for the last 20 years. So again, thank you gentlemen for both of you coming and being here with us and attending. And by the way, this debate is live stream as well, and it will be recorded for folks who want to go back and view the debate after a while. So while we're here and while we're ready to go, we're going to go ahead and get started. The first question will be for Chairman Jones, and first question, Mr. Jones. Earlier this year, Mr. Lawrence became mayor of the city of Jasper. Do you plan to work with him to bring new jobs and businesses to the city and county? If so, are you doing anything to ensure that these new jobs and businesses pay a living wage so that our citizens don't have to drive south to provide for their families?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Me and Mr. Mayor Lawrence has worked well together. We have been able to get together along with the new city manager to form an alliance with Pickens County and the other two commissioners. One of the few things we have done amongst this, we have worked together to hire a joint economic development director. Pickens County pays 50% of that gentleman's salary and office expense, and the city of Jasper pays 50% of that. We, being a county for a little less than 32,000 people, are working together to form an alliance to the fact that we know that the city of Jasper is the heart of Pickens County. We're working closely with the city to partner with them in regard to water, road infrastructure, fire protection, EMS, 911 systems that we've all partnered with, and also to work closely with Mr. Green Suttles, who's the new economic development director that is positioned at the Chamber of Commerce building to be a representative for both Pickens County and the city of Jasper as we go forward. That seems to be working well. With a dilemma that we're all in the last 2 months with the COVID virus, has kind of put a little stunt to the growth in what we're doing. To the fact that that salaries are going up, just I want everybody to know that even though we went through a hard time back in 2008 to 2011 and to this point here, our unemployment rate in Pickens County was everywhere between 2.45% all the way up to 3.5 to nearly 4, depending on what part of those 10 years and 12 years that we were dealing with. Being unemployed in Pickens County is you can get a job. You can get a job here. At 2%, we were out of the 16 Northwest regional counties. We were the lowest, one of the lowest in Northwest Georgia for many years. Granted, there is some people out of work right here, but the business is coming back. We're seeing a lot of mom and pop shops again starting to get back on their feet. Hopefully between the federal and state government coming in there and work with us on that. And as we come forward, the economic development director, I've been in contact with him a time or two with the grants and all that are coming around through the state, that these local small businesses have the opportunity to apply for some of these grants to help them get over this hurdle that we've been dealing with.
Mr. Stansel, same question. Would you like me to repeat the question?
If you would.
I don't mind at all. Earlier this year, Mr. Lawrence became mayor of the city of Jasper. Do you plan to work with him to bring new jobs and businesses to the city and county? If so, are you doing anything to ensure that these new jobs and businesses pay living wage so that our citizens do not have to drive south to provide for their families?
In listening to the chairman's answer there, and I do think that we've had an incredible opportunity in Jasper with the new mayor, the new city manager, for new change to take place. And I think that it's been extremely important to continue to build that relationship, to continue to work. I know that over the past year we have worked with the city and with the Economic Development Council in terms of being able to bring in a new economic developer in Pickens County. I think we've done it at the end of a boom period. We've had an economic boom that's surrounded us for the last decade to 2 decades that have caused a lot of people that are employed that live in Pickens County, but they're driving south of Pickens County for those jobs. One of the areas that I think that is a problem, as part of the question that you asked, as far as the wage that's offered. There are a lot of jobs available, but they're entry-level minimum wage jobs, which don't match up with what our housing market shows right now. If you take a look at the housing inventory and what's there, to find a home under $200,000 while you're making a $20 an hour job or less, it's going to be very difficult for families to be able to pick this as a destination. So I think it's a multi-part problem, a multi-part issue that us working closely with the city and with economic development needs to tackle in terms of working with developers, working with home builders, working with community builders in our zoning, planning, all the different things in place to where we can not only try to recruit to get people to come to provide those jobs, we can also try to work to make sure they have places to live when they have those jobs as well. We have had a very low unemployment rate in Pickens County as far as in our region. It's been one of the lowest unemployment rates around. But we've watched that as so many people work outside the community. We've seen the extreme high end of the income bracket, and we've seen the extreme low end of the income bracket, and unfortunately the middle has been kind of overlooked for years. And so it's something that dates back decades. It's not something that's a recent problem. We've watched as the expansion northward did skip over Pickens County. We watched as a lot of different commercial buildings and a lot of different retail or chain locations move north of here. And then speaking to developers, there's a variety of different reasons. I think a lot of it's gossip and rumor that you hear, but there are some that had valid concerns. Some with infrastructure, others was the land price, some of the issues that they were running into with finding out how to come in, and just the working environment when they were trying to come through. I think we've got to start tackling those issues by listening to those developers, the ones that we want to attract, the ones that we want to recruit, so that we can have a very diverse opportunity, that we're not just focused on retail, that we're not just focused on bringing in one category of businesses for people to work, because those generally generate a lot of minimum wage jobs, but focusing on trying to find ways for small manufacturing, for technology, for small industrial, to where we can continue to build that job market up as well, and create more opportunities. In having the relationship with the city of Jasper is one of those things that the city of Jasper, if they thrive, Pickens County thrives. They are the hub, and if Jasper thrives, so do we. They're the center and the heart, and they're the infrastructure center as well. So definitely work with them.
Thank you. Everybody?
Only thing I'd like to add to that is the fact that Pickens County, as well as the city of Jasper, with the electronics, the IT that we're seeing here in Pickens County, we have developed with fiber optics and all in here to get the IT area of the county out into the rural areas to bring it in. Also, do not forget the comprehensive plan that has been put together 2 different times in the last 20 years to the fact that most of the growth, commercial and industrial growth, is going to the 515 corridor, the 53 corridor, the 136 and the 108. Last thing, I'm assuming Mr. Stansel himself would hate to see is somebody building a chicken house on the side of these mountains. So there's a reason why the comprehensive plan is together. There's a reason why you're seeing business come in. And when you refer to the mom and pop shops, to that point, you are correct to the fact that property here values in Pickens County pretty steep. Henceforth, we all know that we're a Tier 4 county, which we're one of the 16th richest counties in the state out of 159 counties. So it's a balancing act on how we go forward with what we want to do for the clientele that are coming in.
Got to respond?
Yes.
So I do hear what you're saying, and we are a Tier 4, and we are considered to be one of the wealthiest counties, but I believe that the vast majority of people that live in Pickens County don't feel that way. I think a small percentage has increased our value because their income levels are so high. So when they hear that statement, they don't see that match up with their day-to-day life. When you sit at CARES and you watch the line wrap around with people coming to get food just to feed their families, even before the COVID-19 strike occurred, you realize we do have issues with people that do need more meaningful employment. And I think that following that comprehensive plan is you're dead on point to protect the residential areas, to protect our mountainside, to protect the beautiful farmland on the west end of the county. I think that it's definitely got a purpose, it's got a place, and I've been fortunate to be able to be one of the stakeholders in a few of those meetings when it's taken place each time. But we've had the same conversation during the last over 2 decades. We've had the same conversation in that comprehensive plan of things that we can do. 10 years later, we still talked about the same things needing to be done. So one of the reasons that I decided to jump in the race was based off of that plan.
And it's a difficult bridge to cross to the fact that being a Tier 4 county is governed by the census from the federal government. That's where we get those notifications. And locks Pickens County into, when we're classified as a Tier 4 county, we don't get a lot of grants that other counties get. Henceforth, that's why we partner with Bartow County as a joint development authority. We're partnering, and will partner with Gilmer County to the future, because as they have a smaller Tier 4 scenario, we can partner with them to try to bring in some of these funds, not only for the property and what we're dealing with the community, but the school system also is limited because we're classified as and nobody's justifying the fact we're a Tier 4 county, but it can be a positive thing on one side, but it can be detrimental to the individuals that are trying to live on the other.
Okay. Next question. We'll begin to Mr. Stansel. Question number 2. What one part of county government would receive more attention if you were elected?
I really think you can pick one part. I think it's all equal when you take a look at county government and the number of different elected offices and the number of different departments under the control of the Board of Commissioners. They all deserve so much attention. I think if you look at our current budget, about 50% of that budget is a public safety related matter between fire, EMS, 911, and then law enforcement as well. So obviously there is a lot of attention that has to be pushed that way because it's a significant part of the budget pool, but it's not more important than any of the others. I think that it's just as important that the library continue to receive the attention, or that the math system, that they can have the buses to continue to run, receive the attention that it deserves. Economic development, I think, has been on the hearts and minds of people for many, many years, as we discussed in the first question. So I think that it's something that needs a tremendous amount of attention too. So when you're looking at your focused amount of time and effort and energy, I don't think you can gear in one direction or another. You take 50% of the general budget going toward public safety, but 50% of the SPLOST budget going toward the road department. It shows that there's such a tremendous push to try to make sure that we have safe roads and we have paved roads and continue to have that stuff prepared. So I don't think there's one area that deserves more attention than any other. I think it's...
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
And to that point, I agree with Mr. Stansel to the fact that not one area is more important than the other than the fact that we are trying hard on water resourcing, and we'll get into that topic hopefully later on in the discussions. But fire and EMS is a big topic that we see the population of Pickens County are over the age of 45. We have worked hard, and we see the volunteer fire department going by the wayside on account of these young people coming on board, have to get a job. They're not able to take off from work to go fight fires on that. So as of about 6 to 7 years ago, we were trying to change into the fact that we're going to full-time fire department for Pickens County. And there's a thing important about being a full-time fire department for Pickens County is if we can get these ISO ratings lower than a 10 and a 9, the beneficiary of these items in the ISO rating is the homeowners. They get the savings in their pocketbook for the amount of money they save not having to pay out for fire insurance.
10 seconds.
We have, and also to that point, we have increased EMS and the ambulance service to that point.
I think you've got a terrific point on the ISO ratings and the importance of how we work to get those ISO ratings down. If I'm not mistaken, the 2 lowest ISO ratings in Pickens County are both considered volunteer fire service areas, with 2 of our gated communities that have the 2 lowest ISO areas. So I think that they have shown that there are ways invest and there are ways to do things. I agree that the fire service has been moved into, not just in Pickens County, but in rural communities all over, to a paid fire service, and I think that it has had a tremendous impact on the budget over the last 15 years as well, in order to be able to provide that significant amount of budget resources to pay. So I think that the more we can continue to fight, I agree that getting those ISO ratings down is extremely critical. I think that the lower that they can go, the better by far for every citizen.
All right. We'll move to question 3. Be from Mr. Jones. What do you perceive are the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the county, especially in face of an economic downturn?
Well, we were fortunate back in '05 through '11, as we were going through, we referred to the Great Depression here. We survived through that. Pickens County did well through that. We had a lot of projects going on. We upgraded the courthouse, as y'all well see, and was able to pay that building off in about 3 years. We had proceeded with the rec center and the rec department, making those plans for expansion on that. While everything was slowing down and coming to a halt, we took the individuals and the contracts that we listed on all these products. About 15 to 20% of the people that worked on these were from Pickens County. And we have always seemed over the years that any big projects were going on, there's always somebody from outside the county working on that. And that's part of the contracts. The issue you're seeing, though, in the fact of upgrade is water. Water is a big issue. We have now been able to lock into all 4 counties around us. We have been able to work out a deal with Greenfield LLC. We got a first reservoir from Pickens County. We are proceed for the next year and a half putting in a water treatment facility there that'll give us 333,000 gallons a day. Water is a big issue for Pickens County and the city of Jasper as we go forward. The city of Jasper furnishes sewer. Sewer out in the county is another topic that we could talk plenty of time on to work it out, but the elevations that we have to deal with outside the city limits and the flat part of this county is the closest time we start putting in lift stations, and the money that would cost to put in a sewer system throughout the county would break up the normal individual having to hook on to the system itself. We're blessed with ground soils here in Pickens County that is really conducive to the septic tank and the field lines thereof. So it's hard to make a citizen hook on to a sewer system and pay a $50 a month sewer tap bill just because you've got city sewer, because we're not close enough together in these areas out in the rural community to do that. But I see water still a big issue as we go forward. And the supplies for the city of Jasper, keeping their infrastructure strong, is working well. And the interlock that we've done with all our neighboring counties, all 4 of them, has got us to the point to where we can back up one another in our counties and our neighboring counties to supply water. Heaven forbid we have another drought coming down the season. So water has always been an issue.
Can I get you to repeat that?
Yes, sir. What do you perceive are the most pressing needs for infrastructure or capital projects in the county, especially in the face of an economic downturn?
Right. I think one of the most important parts of that question is the tail end in the face of an economic downturn. If we're looking at what we're available or what we're able to do over the next couple of years that's not already been earmarked or projected by SPLOST. That SPLOST has already passed, the referendum was voted on, and so we're locked in for the next 6 years. During that 6 years is probably going to be the time where we start to see a downturn. Hopefully it will just be a bump and we're able to quickly bounce right back up, but I think all predictions are for the next couple of years that we're going to see that. In light of that, I do agree. I think water has always been one of our largest sources. I think it's great that we've got the potential for over 300,000 gallons a day to be coming from Grandview, but I think that's just a drop in the bucket for the need for what we have. So if we start seeing other areas that we're purchasing water from start to have issues and we start to have more difficulty in issues there, that we need to continue to research that, but it's the most expensive project that we can get into. I think it goes back to what we talked about before with the strong relationship with the city. The city's the only place that has sewage, that offers sewer. So if we're going to provide economic development, economic growth, you're not going to get a large company to come put a septic tank in or multiple septic tanks to treat their product. They're going to have a way to tie on to that. So I think sewage has got to become on the planning front as we move forward, we've got to be working a plan to be able to get sewage in place in areas throughout the county, not throughout the entire county, but in areas where we want to see economic growth take place, that we need to be able to start looking at ways, whether it's smaller package plants or whether it's somehow tying on to other systems, which the chairman has already pointed out is very difficult because of our elevation change throughout the county. But if we don't start that plan, if we're decades behind at this point on trying to find a way to be moving forward, then we're going to continue to see where we stay in this flat zone, where we stay stagnant, where we stay without what we need to see going forward. So I do believe water and sewer are two of the largest ones. I know that the commission chair has made roads a significant part of his last term, and the last 5 years of the SPLOST, that a significant portion is gone, and record numbers of roads have been paved. So I think that level and that part of infrastructure, we've got an incredible start. I know that it's been locked in for the next 6 years to continue to invest in that, and I think that that's great. What do we do at the end of that 6 years? We've locked in now to where we're isolated to where people expect that level of service. They expect that level of paving, so that when that referendum doesn't get put back out at the end of that term, have we put ourselves in a hole? Have we put ourselves where we can't continue to maintain the service that we're providing now? So I think that we've got to be able to focus when we look at capital projects on ways that we can continue to increase as our economic development increases, start to increase ways that we're able to provide without being dependent on that SPLOST for coming through to make that happen.
If I may, roads will always be top priority. We have to keep our roads, keep our transportation well. We get our ambulances up and down the roads, we get our fire department. That being said, just to give everybody an update, the fact that Pickens County in the last 12 years has put together ordinances and plans for package sewer systems in the county. We are now in discussion with an entity out of Big Canoe that is looking at furnishing sewer to the foothills area. We are looking at upgrading that area quite a bit, and hopefully this entity will work strongly with Pickens County to get this line built in from not being the cost of the taxpayers. It would be a cost of this independent entity that bring in a sewer system and manipulate that. So the comprehensive plan is working well to that area. But now the ordinances and all has been put in place for package sewer systems for the future in Pickens County, and has been for the last 10 to 12 years for that point. So we have a plan for the future when it comes to sewage, if and when that comes available. But
10 seconds.
Be careful. Along with sewage comes growth, and we want growth in commercial and industrial. But in order to do it and make it feasible, you have to have cluster homes, apartment type scenarios, those type of issues.
So I think you bring up a good point when you talk about we've had that plan in place, but we've not actually put that plan into action. I think that when you look at our housing market and you talk about that with that comes cluster homes or comes other growth opportunities, we have a huge gap in our housing market at this point because the amount of land that's required for those areas. So that could be the possible development that would allow part of unincorporated Pickens, somewhere that's zoned already, to be able to support it. To have growth, to have opportunities for people to have affordable homes, to be able to have an affordable place that they can then move into and continue to work as we continue to expand. So if it expands the foothills area and they're able to create more jobs, then that gives us the opportunity to create places for them to live while they go to work those jobs. So I think that is something that at some point we've got to pull the trigger. We've got to find a way to start rolling that out. That need to be just sitting in the planning books. I think it's something that we need to start moving on.
Just a quick, and we also rely on independent developers to help pay that bill. It's not fair for somebody on the west end of the county lives in Leadville to have to pay that tax bill to support some sort of commercial growth on the east end of the county. So all it's got to work together as we go forward.
All right. On to the fourth question. This will be from Mr. Stanson. Recently, this is going to be a long one. Recently, Governor Kemp lifted the statewide shelter-in-place order that required all non-essential workers to stay in their homes in an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19. If the virus takes a turn for the worse again, and if the numbers in Pickens continue to rise, would you consider implementing a new shelter-in-place order for the county whether Governor Kemp chooses to do so or not?
So it's kind of a loaded question, because when you look at Governor Kemp's order actually specifically said that no local government could issue an order that overrode his order. So when the governor put that order in place and when he lifted that order, he put the language in the executive order that prevented local governments from going steps beyond what was there. Now, once it's lifted completely, does that open the door back up? We'll have to see when it goes. I think that the shelter-in-place order, for people to understand, and if you go back to the language when it was originally there, I think we all were learning new languages about pandemics and about viruses, was to flatten the curve. They were talking about trying to keep us from overrunning what the capacity of our healthcare system could do. And once they realized that we were at a point where it was on the decline and we hadn't actually overwhelmed our healthcare system, they started to relax and start opening those things back up. I think that the numbers have shown good favor in Pickens County especially. I think the last I checked, we were at 36 or 37 earlier today. So we've kind of held flat for a week. We've not seen a spike, but we've seen spikes in every county around us. So we know that the potential's there. It could happen overnight, that there's one family that catches it and goes to a gathering of 10 people and gradually starts to spread, because you're seeing people take it a little bit less seriously at this time. I do think that it depends upon how the governor lifts the order. If the governor lifts the order, giving the power back to local governments to make decisions, then at that point we would have to take a look and see if that weight had hit. If the governor leaves the order intact the way that it is, I think he's took away that ability, that he's took away that decision from being a local decision to make. So based upon that, that's why I say it's a loaded question to be able to put an answer to.
Second, you want me to repeat the question? You okay?
No, we have Pickens County as well with the Sheriff's Department and with Public Health. We work well together during this crisis that's wrapped on here for about 8 weeks. To Mr. Stansel's point, the governor can override whatever we try to do locally. And we're waiting on numbers. You're correct to the fact that about 37, 38 have been positive. We've got 8 in the hospital, and we've had 3 deaths so far in Pickens County. The numbers are stable, have been for about 3 or 4 days now. And but to your point, if the governor lifts it, and we start seeing the numbers start climbing, and especially in our area, the issue we have here in Pickens County, we've got one hospital. This hospital answers to majority of the citizens in Gilmer County, on the west side of Dawson County, on the east side of Gordon, and on the north side of Cherokee. And this hospital can be overwhelmed if we're not careful, if this thing gets out of hand and starts spreading. Henceforth, I'm still concerned to the fact that what are we going to do about school systems for Pickens County when we start bringing kids in September, if that be the case. My staff and myself, we were kind of a little proactive to the fact that we shut things down quicker than most counties around us. And I hope that helped keep the numbers as low as we have here in Pickens County to get out of control. I would not have no problem doing it again if I felt like it was necessary to keep my citizens safe here in the county, especially I'm focusing on individuals over 50 years of age. I see the dilemma. I see the fact that not only do the citizens at risk, but all the emergency personnel to that point has to address these citizens as we get called out. Sheriff's Department, food, ambulance service. I mean, I can just go on and on to that point, more than 3 minutes. But and it's a dilemma that none of us have lived through this in our lifetime. But we have worked well with the city of Jasper, Sheriff's Office, North Georgia Health District. But as testing starts escalating, and I think and that has been happening here in Pickens County, you're going to see some more positive cases. Whether that's a true value of everything that's going on around us is still yet to be determined. And normally, people of Pickens County, common sense seems to be ruling the fact that they are staying at home. I mean, it comes to the point to what do you want to do with your life if you go forward? But to your question and to the question that's asked, if I have to, I would. Whether the governor was on board or not, if I saw the necessity to do it, I would take the risk. I would shut it down, and if the governor come here and open it up, he'd do it without my permission.
So in what you're saying of doing it. I think that there's some factors that we have to factor into. We mentioned mom and pop buildings and restaurants and businesses earlier. The impact on those businesses and those lives, the livelihoods of everybody involved is significantly affected. I think we've learned a lot over the last 8 weeks, so that if another shelter in place were to have to be put in place, it could be done in a more limited fashion, not necessarily to where everything's locked down, all non-essentials are closed, but there could be certain steps put in place, either requirements for masks, other things like that you could do to try to limit exposure without having to force more businesses to close their doors again. Because if there's a second wave, the potential for the federal assistance that came in on the first wave may not come back in the second wave. I think we've seen the help that we're going to get. The help that we're going to get came out, and the people were able to get the unemployment benefits that were there. So if a second wave were to come through, we're going to have to rely on our own. So we've got to use what we've learned over the last 8 weeks to be prepared for that as well.
And if I may follow up with that one, if I may make a public service announcement real quick, we have worked hard with the Sheriff's Department, with the City of Jasper and everything, but we do have a social media ability to get our key people informed. And as of the inmate director put in place here about 5-6 weeks ago on the COVID-19 information hotline, which is 706-253-8978. And the Sheriff's Department's also got a website that refers to that also. And the questions that are asked by not only the local citizens of the county, but the business people thereof, and how we proceed. And we're trying to keep everybody informed and try to stay ahead of the game. And I believe that's helped to keep our numbers low.
Question number 5, Mr. Jones. As Pickens County evolves, some people feel that a dedicated, non-elected county manager needs to run day-to-day operations with contingency planning. How would your office support a non-elected county manager?
That is something we have already kicked around, to the fact that I feel like in the near future that needs to get to the forefront. There's nothing wrong with having a county manager. Pickens County had a candidate county manager back in the Frank Martin administration. Different scenario back then, being a sole commissioner, but now we've got a 3-person board. County manager with experience that a county manager needs to run that county of this size is I think coming closely to happening one of these days. We're looking at the fact that what the public would want to know is the fact that as we did the 3-person board, we took part of my salary and divided that up between the other 2 commissioners, and I took a cut. Didn't care. If you're running for this job for the money, you're backing up anyway. So I took a cut to that point, and was able to bring the 3-person board on, and was able to fund these 2 individuals, as meager as it was, $10,500, $10,700 a year for that. As we go into, if we want to morph into a county manager, we need to look at the bylaws of Pickens County. That needs to probably run through the state legislature, change the bylaws on that, and then also we can make the chairman of the board of commissioners at that time be a commissioner chairman, but his salary would be cut enough to be able to afford to pay a county manager. It's not right, in my personal opinion, to pay a county manager excess of $100,000 and the chairman of the board of commissioners still making $92,000, $93,000, $94,000. That's not fair. That's not fair to the taxpayers. But I think you're going to see a time, maybe in the near future, that's going to be discussed, and I think it needs to be discussed and brought out as we go forward. After this election year is over, give us time to talk about how we want to proceed. But there is some the devil's in the details, and you've got to work with your state legislature to get your bylaws changed. That has to be voted on by the citizens of Pickens County to see if they want to go to county manager type form of government. So all that can be worked out, and just nothing that I would be opposed to.
So, my thoughts on this are, first and foremost, I'm running for the position as it stands. I'm running for the county commission chairman as it stands. I think one of the areas that I'm excited to be running for is a function in the county manager capacity. However, I also understand that if we start to grow, as our community starts to grow and we move beyond what we are now, that the need is going to be in place that somebody could be separated from the politics of running day-to-day operations and have somebody that can just be focused and answering directly to that board. I think before we reach that point, I'm of the belief that we need to revisit the 3 or 5 person commission. I know that it was voted on whenever it was originally voted, and there was the option of remaining sole or go to a 3 or go to a 5. I think for the complexity of managing a county manager, that you would need to first probably get into place a 5-person commission so that there can be more discussion. And with sunshine laws, the 2 commissioners can't talk without having a quorum if they're talking about county business. If you have a manager and you're having to have conversations that go back and forth, then that creates a little bit more of a complexity. I spent a lot of time last year and the year before while I was going through the certified public manager training. There were city and county managers from all over the state and law enforcement officers from all over the state. Got to know quite a few, both city and county managers. Got to understand their salaries in comparable communities to our size and larger. And most of them make a significant amount more than what the county chairman makes in Pickens County now. So there is a cost of trying to find somebody qualified. You've got to be willing to pay for what those qualifications are. So if you're wanting to actually bring in somebody that's got a master's degree and 3 certification levels and experience as a manager, then you're going to have to pay the salary that's there. You're going to have to be competitive. I don't think that we're at that point yet. I don't think we're far from being there. I think that if we see the boom in economic development take place, then we can start to develop and move in that direction. But I think that for right now, I don't see it being an immediate turn. But at the same time, in listening to people and listening to the public and listening to citizens, if that's something that is demanded, then I believe it's something that you put before them and let them vote on. I 100% agree that if the people are continually saying that that's what they want to see, then give them the option, give them the opportunity. So I'm in agreement with you on that.
And if I may pony up to that also, the citizens of this county have to realize the bigger you make government, the less control that they've got on how it's operated. And you take people out of the place to answer to the public that's out there, if you understand what I'm saying. So there's always an upside and a downside as we go forward. To Mr. Stansel's point, I'm in agreement too. There's a balancing act. What do? You bring it up to a 5-person board before you go to a county manager. There again, I'm back to the point that you're just enlarging government. You have no, again, heaven forbid you get to the point where you have no accountability. Everybody's doing this. So that's something that everybody needs to consider as we go forward. But to Mr. Stansel's point, it needs to be brought forth and let the citizens vote on it as we go forward in the future.
All right. Next question will be question number 6. Go to Mr. Stansel. If new resources were available, what one area of county services do you feel most needs additional resources?
If new resources were available, so I love hypothetical where you can say if you magically had all the money that you needed to spend on it. From the last couple of years of speaking to people, I was actually shocked in some levels of the parks and recreation, the feelings people had toward parks and recreation, and the desire people have towards seeing an expansion in parks and recreation. I know Roper Park has served us well. I grew up playing t-ball in those fields. I grew up swimming in the pool, the same, they're there today. But I think that if we're going to continue to expand, we've got to go beyond just expanding there. I think that building a park in the east end of the county and the west end of the county would be incredible ideas, and incorporating things like splash pads. Aquatic centers have been discussed frequently. All these things, going back to the hypothetical of if the resources were available, would be able to provide things for people to do, to get outdoors. So we've got the most incredible outdoor space in terms of the backdrop for Pickens County that you could ever see. But the more we can do to provide people an opportunity to be out there, not just to be involved in competitive sports, but for our senior citizens to participate in aquatics and to be able to go and do whatever there. Pickleball has become a huge topic and a huge area that the community center uses for indoor, but if we had a way to have an outdoor opportunity. So I think Parks and Recreation, if we had the available resources, would be an incredible addition to change the quality of life. You can't pass up on the opportunity that also, with those available resources, expanding our infrastructure. That would be the time that you could then start putting water and sewer into the areas that you need the water and sewer to go to so that you can expand. The animal shelter, I think the more we could do to expand and to offer more services through there would be incredible. But these are all things that are going to require significant additional funding. I think that we can start working toward there. I know that the SPOS has recently put over $2 million toward Parks and Recreation over the next 6 years. It can give us the opportunity to start providing in that category, but we I think, need to be able to start looking at how do we make that more? How do we make a bigger impact? How do we partner up, whether it's with private groups or with citizens? Roper Park became Roper Park because Dr. Roper gave Roper Park to the county. So we look for opportunities similar to that where we can start providing some things in different areas throughout the county and start giving these resources, these amenities that people are longing to see. A lot of times people want to compare to the county just south and they launch into the comparison to our parks versus Cherokee County's parks. And I think the last I saw, there were a dozen county maintained parks in Cherokee County, but they have a community of about 250,000 people that are providing for that. I don't think that we should just discount that our citizens don't deserve the same amenity. They don't deserve the same quality. They don't deserve the same luxuries, for lack of a better word. But I think that we need to make sure that we move forward cautiously, that we take advantage of the opportunity as funding, like the question was asked, if the funding was there, then we can truly expand that and significantly change quality of life.
Tom?
And as we're going forward, we are looking at some property now as both of us sit here for expanding the Parks and Rec for what we've got now. We're very fortunate here in Pickens County to the fact that we've got 1,100 acres on the side of Burnt Mountain. It's got 3 different walking trails there that have been expanded on. We have got a park on top of Monument Mountain that's probably on park. They partnered with the county to get the roads up there to have that park up there for quite a walking and for the seniors. We've also got up there on the Pickens-Skidmore County line off of 515. We've got about 200 to 300 acres up there that's privately owned. Somewhere down the road, that's going to be donated to the county, or they've speculated to that, bicycle park, as well as picnic areas up there that we've got on that end. We would also like to see the Parks and Rec expanded either on the west end and east end of Pickens County. And as you suggested earlier, if you had unlimited funds to that point, again, the devil's in the details. What are you going to spend to maintain those parks and the maintenance thereof? And we're working closely with a lot of voluntary entities, such as the county south of us that has quite a few parks with 250,000 people. A lot of the parks down there and the property that these parks are sitting on were donated by families in that area. We don't have that luxury here in Pickens County other than Roper Park itself. It used to be the old airport there that the Roper family had. So we're just don't have the individuals that want to donate X amount of acres for parks like they have at the 250 population of Cherokee County. So, but it's coming. We are a laid-back community of less than 32,000 people again. I love to get out and walk. I got people that love to ride bicycles. And we would like to come up as we go forward with what we want to do for the parks and increasing the parks for the children. Because as we grew up, it wasn't much harder if it didn't come through the high school. And hopefully as the future progresses and the school gets big enough, I would be not opposed to maybe partnering with the school system, building a new aquatic center, and work something out with them on that point where they can have school teams, swim meets to that point. We're already partnering with the school system for track and field, and we work well with them when it comes to Roper Park and with the track and field type. So it's all coming. I can see it in the future. And it's part of the comprehensive plan. We have got a plan for recreation that goes back to '09 that we've been working towards, and it's slowly coming to fruition. But you got to grow into it. I'm not one to go in debt and make things happen overnight. And that's why the fiscal responsibility that I'm so proud of at Pickens County as we go forward. We're trying to keep a lid on the expenses.
Gentlemen, we went through. No, I'm sorry, I apologize. I was told to mention.
He made a comment.
No, please.
With not being willing to go into debt. I know we just went in an additional $2 million of debt for the recycling center to be able to work on the capital improvement just after we went through and put together a SPOS referendum that didn't include that in there. I think that from listening to the public and listening to citizens, Parks and Rec have been one of the major concerns that they had. I think that listening to them, if we were going to choose a route to go, then trying to provide quality of life services would have been an area that I would have felt like was a stronger need within our community if we were looking at that. And just in that decision alone, I do believe that the recycling center needed change. I'm not in any way, shape, or fashion thinking that what we have was sufficient for what we needed to continue to move forward. But at the same time, if we didn't have the money in the bank to go $2 million more into debt, was that actually the smartest move? I don't personally feel like that was the time to make that step. And so I just wanted to point that out.
And to his point, he might have a point to a certain extent. I thought it was the time. We are going to come to the point where we're trying to build infrastructure in Pickens County. Part of that infrastructure has got to be our waste control. And we have got to focus more on the recycling side of the waste for Pickens County than we have in the past. If you want things to grow, you got to have somewhere to put your trash. And so we have stepped it up a notch. We're looking at the $2 million investment that we're doing for the recycling center as hopefully within a year to 18 months time, breaking even where Pickens County residents are not bleeding as we try to keep this trash hauled off. Keep Pickens Beautiful has been a great asset for Pickens County to show how we can recycle and separate this stuff. Now it's come to the point that we need to try to make money off this product that we've got here, whether it's white paper, whether it's cardboard, whether it's two different kinds of plastic. And then we're going to have a nice facility that we can bring people in, get them out of the mud. The traffic is atrocious there, trying to get right there where the unit is at right now. And we just had an opportunity with not only that building, but the 18 acres that went with it. That can be done something for the future. So it's an investment, and I'm not ashamed of pulling the trigger on that one.
Apologize again for that. Total oversight. What I was looking at was our time, and we're coming down to close to the end, and each candidate will be given 3 minutes to explain to citizens of Pickens County why that they should vote for them. So we begin with Mr. Jones on the questions, so we'll begin with Mr. Stansel on the closing remarks.
Thank you. So first, I just want to say thank you for moderating. Greg, I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for the opportunity that we could sit here, the GOP, and No Pickens for being here and filming and live streaming this. It's a strange debate with a room that's empty and looking at a camera when we do this part, but at the same time, I'm very thankful for the technology and for Mary being willing to do this. Over the last 20 years, I've invested my life in public service. I think I've had a heart for trying to serve the community, whether that be in times at the Chamber of Commerce or in ministry or at the Sheriff's Office and serving in a variety of different capacities. The last 6 years, focusing on administration and trying to work on training and hiring and policy development. In doing so, I've developed a heart even more so than what I had before in caring for our community. I want to do everything I can to give back. I want to offer myself to the community to try to help us move forward, to have a clear vision toward not only paying attention to our past and paying attention to the experiences that have brought us here, but not focusing there, but focusing forward, have a forward focus on what we're doing, to be able to try to fight for unifying our local government, working with the city, working with other elected officials throughout the community, working to eliminate non-essential spending, to eliminate the increases that we've seen over the last 10 years where we've seen the budgets continue to skyrocket, to try to find ways that we can level that so that we can be prepared as we move forward. Fighting for a no-kill animal shelter to ensure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that animals are taken care of. Also working with groups like Keep Pickens Beautiful and community service workers to get the trash off the streets as we're continuing to pave and do all that we're doing. Let's make sure that we get them clean as well. And fighting to do all that we can to get our county solvent, to do what we can to get away from debt, as many opportunities as we can to avoid going further in, whether that's short-term, long-term. I think we've done an incredible job. The Board of Commissioners has done a great job in managing a lot of those categories, but I think that we can always do better. And I'm here just to offer myself to try to be a servant to move us forward in that direction. And I look forward to the opportunity to answer any questions anyone might have.
Mr. Jones.
again, I want to thank the Republican Party for pulling this together. It has been perilous times that we've dealt with here with the COVID virus. It's kind of limited us to the fact that we couldn't get out and talk to the public and have meetings and be one-on-one with a lot of individuals. This really gives us an opportunity to talk. But anyway, I already have the experience, relationships and knowledge to do the job, a lot of training, vice president of corporation back many years ago to bring this forward. Looking back to 2005, man, what have we accomplished since 2005 when we brought this county from where it was to where it is now? We came through the depression of 08 through 2011 through those entities. We were able to keep everything together without the debt issue and pull that off. We were able to get some construction done in Pickens County that was in dire need of upgrading for one another. And with the relationships that I have able to grow with state government and some federal government as we go forward, henceforth the money, the grants that we are finally bringing into Pickens County to help us with issues that we've got to make the county grow. It has been a very rewarding experience that I've had for the last 16 years here in Pickens County. Sole commissioner for 8 years, chairman of the board for the past 8 years, and met a lot of good people. Granted, I've been here since '68, and the people here in Pickens County we're a breed of our own, and we manage to run our own business without much interference. Henceforth, we run a tight ship. I have run a tight ship, and you need to run a tight ship and be fiscally responsible as you go forward. The business that we had, the family business that we had for 30 years, the many companies I've worked at since that time has been very rewarding. But this right here, working with the people, working hand in hand with the individuals out here, helping turn a lot of this stuff around, and seeing the need for the future. You have to invest in the future of what you're trying to deal with, because if you don't look towards the future, you're going to be stuck in the past. So we proceed on with that. The COVID-19 downturn, we'll get through this. It's been an item that most elected officials have been trying to figure out how we're going to finance it, but we are coming close to the fact that it's not that bad. Just give the community here a heads up. For this last month, 4 weeks for the SPLOST and LOST, we had a $60,000 increase in sales tax revenues. So it's interesting to see what the next 4 weeks are going to be when we get those numbers in. But I want to hammer on to the fact that experience matters. Recreation is top my priority. Infrastructure, water, fire, EMS, all the infrastructure details we've got to do, and economic development. What we want to do with economic development and bring them love. But again, I want to thank the people of Pickens County for backing me up these last 16 years. I want to ask for your vote again for the next 4 years to keep the county on the same line that we're going. Thank you very much.
I'll say again, thank you to both of our candidates. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you to the citizens of Pickens County for tuning in. And please tune back in again in just a few minutes for the Pickens County Sheriff's race. Thank you very much. Good evening.